With all the drama that was circling with Hastro from the Dallas Empire / Dallas Fuel / Envy and Dexerto, I thought it was probably a good time to put out a way too early power rankings of my own. Of course, they're completely correct and there's no bias whatsoever, so tune in. Hope you guys enjoy it. COD fans, good to see you guys back. Again, it's been a little bit of a hiatus, but I don't like to do drama posts. I don't like to kind of fill the channel with nonsense. So I'm not going anywhere. Still doing a lot of casting. Still going to be doing a lot of content recaps. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. Good to have you. Hopefully, if you enjoy this style, you will consider hitting that subscribe button and ringing the notification to get full notifications of when my videos do pop up. Let's dig into it, though. 12 teams. Now, I will say that not every single team has been scrimming. And beyond that, scrims are nothing but just that. Scrims. That's it. Period. There's nothing else to talk about. They're just practice. Most of the teams are still trying to figure out the game, let alone the fact that they're trying to come up with some setups. And as far as what do we want to do for executions, Search and Destroy is going to look very different come late January than it currently does. I will go to figure. So, that being said, I have encountered some of the things that I've seen by scrims, also talking to a couple of people that are around the community, no names to be shared, but been talking to a lot of people, and these are kind of the power rankings as far as how people are seeming to think that it could go. I will say that, once again, these are early, way too early. There should be no investment put into this whatsoever besides for your entertainment, because when it comes to January, that's when power rankings will really start to pop off and teams will really start to be playing their complete, well, hopefully, best. Let's go ahead and dig into it then. 12th spot, starting down at the very, very bottom. You got to put Paris Legion down here. I don't know what they've been looking at as far as scrims, but just based on this roster alone, who's even going to start for this roster? You got Brezzy, Kismet, Dens, Phantoms, Shocks, Zed, and Luca. Now, again, with Dens, Shocks, and Luca all being essentially what was at the point in time a Mind Freak squad, Dens, of course, being power up for the Black Ops 4 season, but Shocks and Luca, who spent all of their time just previously sitting in the Black Ops 4 open brackets, they didn't even make it the world champs. In fact, they barely even made it top 32 at Miami. So who's going to be the players to start on this roster? I like Kismet. I like Phantoms. Dens did play pretty solid. Luca played well, but again, it was against mostly open bracket caliber players. Zed was okay. Brezzy was hot, but it just feels like this is a very strange roster. Flat out. I think if you're Paris, you're happy about Brezzy. He's the French player here, but why did you not pick up Whalers? Where is the rest of that French roster that did relatively well, not only during their time individually during the Black Ops 4 CWL, but also when they dropped down and played for Trainhard Esport, at least some of them did, when it came to the CWL bracket itself, making an appearance at Champs. Don't know. It just feels like they were the last ones to pick up and they found some scraps here. I don't see this team doing all that well. It's going to have to be down to something special. Someone's going to be absolutely nutty at this game, and honestly, all 5 players, that whatever they do starting roster-wise, are going to have to be good at this game. I've gotten my 11th spot, and I never thought in a million years that I would have them this far low based on this roster, but I've got Optic Gaming LA in the 11th spot. Now, before you guys all lose your lids, this team has not only not been doing well in scrims, but they have been getting at each other. From what I could tell, they've stopped streaming. Stopped streaming scrims completely. TJ Dashy, Slasher, Kenny, and JCap. You look at that roster, you hear it, and you say, okay, this should be a really solid roster. Kenny and Slash are not having the greatest starts to this year. JCap is still being, good. And then TJ and Dashy are still kind of in that same realm of trying to figure the game out with their 3 other teammates. So far, what I've seen, it's all over the place. It's a lot of individuals playing for themselves. Not really any kind of a team cohesion yet. As far as I know, and I could be very wrong here, I haven't really been keeping up with the Optic Gaming LA squad. I don't know if they've announced a coach yet, or if they have, or have not rather. Who are they using to kind of help guide them? I don't know. So again, don't put me on blast for that, but I don't know if they have a coach yet. But whoever it is, if there is somebody or if there isn't anybody, they need to start to put some of these egos and to put these guys in line, because so far it's not looking or sounding good based on what we saw from a couple of weeks previously. In my 10th spot, I've got the Toronto Ultra, and I think the biggest thing when it comes to this Toronto squad is that they have a lot of really good options, but every single combination that I kind of hear of, I keep coming back to the same thought that it feels like Brack is going to have to carry this team again. He already did it through Accelerate. He didn't necessarily have to do it with Luminosity, but he absolutely did it when he was on Accelerate. So what's going to happen with this Toronto Ultra squad? I like the players that are here, but I feel like the cohesion is just not... I don't know. I really can't put a tangible thing on this squad as being like, this is going to be the key factor of success for this squad outside of Brack. Looney Method's Lucky Medals are supposedly the top 5, but Bance was playing for him earlier today as I was making this in, so instead of Lucky. So I don't know what the 5 is going to look like, and I'm sure Marky B is going to do something with this squad to make them feel a little bit more cohesive, but I just haven't seen or heard enough about this squad to really give me a lot of faith, and even looking at the roster, it just feels kind of okay, right? I mean, Classic was okay last year. Kleenex was good during World Championships, but again, played throughout most of the open bracket throughout the rest of the year. Mayhem was just okay. Bance was just okay. It's just everybody in this roster was essentially just okay outside of Brack, who was incredible. So, again, Black Ops 4 Modern Warfare, take from it what you will, but that's kind of my thoughts on that team. Going up one above that in the 9th spot, the LA Guerrillas, and I've been hearing they've been doing well in the scrims. I haven't had much of a chance to watch them play specifically recently, but I just don't know how much I've loved this roster. Aches, Decimate, Aqua, Saints, Lacefield. All 5 of those players had very hot and cold moments throughout last year. I would say you would argue through Black Ops 4 a lot more cold moments than hot moments. Again, take what you will from that, because Black Ops 4 to Modern Warfare, very different games. I feel like Aches should be better at this style of game where he can lock down a main anchor AR, but who knows? It's all a big question mark right now, and so far, based on this roster, I'm just not loving the roster move. And again, based on what I've seen, not much. Not really falling in love with what they had to offer early game, at least not as of yet. Getting into the 8th spot, I've got the Florida Mutineers here, and I think that this is probably a team that very well could go higher faster. Mox, Skies, Frost, Pristini, and Havoc. A lot of explosive players there, not only mechanically, but also kind of emotionally, which is how I'm a little bit worried about it. Pristini in specific, Mox had his moments last year, but of course, that was during the Gen G phase where things were kind of going great, and then obviously at World Championships, not so great. But you also mimic up with Frosty and Skies, 2 very solid, very quiet players that are just play their role very, very well at that, mind you. So this Florida Mutineers squad, I like it. I just don't love it. I think that they're going to need some help as far as the substitutes. We don't know what that looks like. This was the team that most recently, the last team to announce their roster. So don't know what they're doing as far as moves for a sub spot, but I'm hoping they don't just go with an analyst S&D specialist and they get some actual solid players that are still out there, by the way, sitting in the open division or the challengers division, that I think they honestly should be able to sign on a couple of players to make them a little bit stronger in the depth category. Going up to the 7th spot, I've got the London Royal Ravens, and the thing that I love most about the London Royal Ravens squad is the fact that they found a bunch of Englishmen. I think that's great for the team. I think it's great for the identity. I think it'll be great for the region and that fan base. However, the biggest problem is I just don't know how good this team is going to be. They are practicing now in Charlotte, North Carolina, just down the road from where I'm at. And what I've seen is they're getting better at a pretty fast rate, but I just don't know what their ceiling is going to look like. Scraps, I think, absolutely top-tier player. Dylan, top-tier player. Wuskin Jordan rated, very solid, at least in Black Ops 4, middle-of-the-road players. You're going to have to hope that one of those 3 players are going to have to really kind of rise in stock to make this team a top 6 squad, if not a top 4 squad, as I'm sure they're hopefully looking to do come January early on. Shawnee and Mad Cat are also on the bench, which are actually 2 really solid pickups for substitutes. Very, very excited about that. I think Mad Cat brings a lot of leadership, and he can essentially play the analyst role when he's not being utilized for a sub spot. So that's kind of my thoughts on London, just in the 7th spot. Now we get to the top 6. In my 6th spot, the Minnesota Rocker. A lot of people have been sleeping on this squad, and I think generally speaking, I was one of those guys as well. Sitting and looking at this roster on paper, you say, okay, not bad whatsoever. Silly, Assault, GodRx, Alex, and Asim with Tiny and Exceed on the bench as substitutes. 2 good subs, by the way, up-and-coming players that I really like this pickup. I think out of all the subs that are out there, these guys have done it the best, because if Tiny and Exceed just happen to be explosive-ass players, they very well could just be filled right into the main roster and be that kind of young risk and reward that we kind of saw from players like Skies, like Brack from last year. Tiny and Exceed, I think, are probably the next ones up as far as being on the outside just looking in. And based on what I saw from Exceed from the World Championships run and during his time at the open bracket, he very well could be a superstar in the making. So I love the fact that they picked up 2 really solid subs. For the main roster itself, it's a solid roster. Again, Silly, Assault, GodRx all had very good years last year. Alex and Asim, a little bit in the middle. Alex had that course little bit of, I'm not sure what team I'm playing on, what role I'm playing on. Ended up kind of falling into a good spot near the end. Asim kind of the same rate, came in from FaZe Clan Black, got into the FaZe Clan squad, did very well. Really hoping that he has another solid year here because as an entry SMG, you're probably a little bit nervous about that, I think, just generally speaking, with no grapple, no slam. In my 5th spot, the New York Subliners. Accuracy attached, Zuma, Zero, and Temp. They have Sensor and Happy on the bench. I imagine we will see very little, if any, of those. That feels like Sensor for his content and his influence, and Happy for his kind of more mentorship and experience as kind of another kind of lending of an ear between Revan, JP, and the rest of the squad. I love this team on paper. I think that with Revan specifically having control of the team that he wants from day number 1, I think this team could be very, very good. So far, they've just been sitting kind of in the middle of the pack, and I think a lot of people would say that I'm rating them too high, but I think that their potential is very, very strong, simply because, Revan last year, it took him until the very last roster mania period before he finally got the team that I think he really wanted, based on what he could work with. That Evil Geniuses squad was, again, fractions away from being able to take down United and potentially being in the winners' finals of the World Championships. This New York Subliners team feels like this is the team that Revan wants, the one that he's ready to coach, and one that I think with all the experience that is there, will get better at a steady rate. Will they get better quick? Not 100% sure, but will they get better over the course of the entire year? I think absolutely yes. In my 4th spot, I've got the Seattle Surge. Again, kind of the same boat here. You got Joey Nubsy behind the helm. He's got a bunch of players that have a ton of experience, a ton of veteranship, and you got Proto and Pander who will likely be leading up the Seattle Academy team for the Challengers division that could make very good two-way contract players that very well could be substitutes for weekends that you absolutely need them. Slacked, Octane, Enable, Karma, and Apathy is that starting roster. Again, they've got themselves Joey Nubsy as a coach. I think that he's going to do very well at this roster. I think there's a lot of experience here. Now, again, the results in scrims have not necessarily kind of mimicked that sentiment, at least not as of yet. But again, there's a lot of things that still have to happen with these teams individually when it comes to actually going through and not just scrimming for scrimming's sake. And let's actually start learning some of these maps and setting up some of those executes. I think Surge are going to be a team that's going to look very good in the early season simply because I think they're going to take the time, they have the discipline to do those things and take care of that nitty-gritty business. And most importantly, like New York, just be responsible when it comes to travel weekends and not just let loose and go wild with it, but actually come in, do a job, and then go home and get better. I think that those two teams are going to be handling it much better than a lot of the other ones. So then we get to the top 3. These ones, again, I would say from 4 to 9, all of those teams can beat each other pretty consistently, and I think all of them have a chance at beating these top 3 squads on a not regular basis, but I think they could beat them, at least take maps off of them. So I think that those 4 through 9 spots will be pretty fluctuating as far as the rankings go. But these top 3, I'm pretty confident in right now. My 3rd spot, I got the Chicago Huntsman, Scump, Formal, Gunless, Arcides, Envoy, and they just announced General joining in today. They also have Tupac coming in as a search and destroy analyst, which is kind of what it is. But this roster has looked good. They definitely are having issues, though, when it comes to playing at the speed of Atlanta FaZe and the discipline of the Dallas Empire, which is why I have them in the 3rd spot. I think this team can be great. I think this team could be a number 1 squad. Early season, though, I think they're going to just be riding mostly off of their talent and then just kind of developing things a little bit slower. You got Envoy, who, again, just kind of feels like, I don't want to say this so negatively, but I'm going to say it. He's kind of there along for the ride. Like, again, when you have Scump, Formal, Gunless, and a world champion in Arcides, you kind of feel like the 5th man there. But the fact of the matter is he's playing well right now. And I would love to see them play more of that entry SMG alongside Scump, get really, really solid at understanding how to play this game, and then become that superstar that I think we all saw moments of, at least, in last year's Black Ops 4. In my 2nd spot, I do have the Atlanta FaZe here. Simp, Abizi, Major Maniac, Priestess, Celium, and then Gravity and Journey are announced as their substitutes. I believe they're going to be running under the FaZe Clan Black team for the Challengers. This team is quick. They are very, very fast. There's a ton of interactions on the map when those 5 guys are playing compared to other squads that are there. Scrim results aside, doesn't really make much of a difference. I think that simply because they're playing the game at a different speed than all of the other 11 squads, it's going to give them a different feel, a different vibe, and that kind of tempo is going to be difficult, I think, for some of these teams to keep up with. Even if they have bad days, if they're playing quickly and they're hitting hills with 20, 15 seconds left and still rotating around the map, it's going to catch a lot of teams off guard. You've seen that already, and I think that because of that, this Atlanta FaZe squad is going to do very well. Very excited to see what Crowder has to bring to the table with Easy Mac as far as the coach and analysts go, as far as what can this team possibly find as far as a ceiling, because so far they've been very, very impressive. And then in my first spot, I do have the Dallas Empire here. Crimsix, Clayster, Hugh, Illy, and Shotzi. The most impressive person on this team for me so far has been Shotzi. He is the only one that I've really, again, I don't mean to make it sound like he's the only person on the team, but he's the one guy that I can see keeping up with the pace that the Atlanta FaZe have currently done. The biggest thing about this Dallas team is the fact that Crimsix and Clayster have looked at the two most solid ARs that I've seen at least playing in tandem with one another. Hugh, Illy, and Shotzi are really starting to find a vibe as the three of them are running around in front of those ARs behind them. And with Illy and Shotzi being rookies, it just kind of feels like the gloves are off. Granted, again, it is still very early and it is online, but I've loved what I've seen from this Dallas team. So that's my top 12 as it were. Again, a lot of things to consider. I'm sure a lot of thoughts. So make sure you get down to the comment section below. Tear me apart. What did I absolutely mess up on? What don't you like whatsoever? Again, these are way too early power rankings. All subject, of course, to change based on any kind of tournaments we might be getting from some of these squads. More importantly, though, as the season gets going. I'll try to get some more content out for you guys, but honestly, there's not a lot for me to cover right now. I don't really care about drama. I don't really care about the scrim results, so I don't make videos like that. But I am going to try to get some more kind of analytical things up on the YouTube for you. So again, if you enjoyed, hit the subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and we'll see you guys next time. Until then, hope you keep holding it down. Later. Bye-bye.